Welcome everybody to our BrightID community call AMA session, January 27th, 2022. This is just open to you guys. We don't have any topics planned. We do have an interesting Twitter Spaces right after this. So we tweeted about it. If you want to check out that Twitter space, that should be pretty fun. There's this interesting project. It was a workshop that Philip and I both did, and a bunch of other people that have projects that are similar to BrightID in a way, trying to also solve this problem of one account per person. And there's different ways that they're trying to solve it, but we all get together because we all have similar challenges and similar goals. And so when there's certain things that we learn as we're trying to tackle this really important and really difficult problem that we find that we share in common. We share our experiences and like any new insights about the common challenges, and also just anything that might help other people that are working it. So we tried to, I think the Humanetics workshop was really good in trying to make this a collaborative space, because I think most of the projects in it, there's some that are not open source, like WorldCoin. So, I'm a little more skeptical about those. But I think for those of us that are working together to solve this problem in a kind of an open source collaborative way, this Humanetics is really good. So I'm excited to hear updates from other projects, and we'll give updates on BrightID there. So that's in about an hour. So I encourage you to check that out and join Humanetics if you're interested in learning about other solutions besides BrightID and what those common challenges are that we all face. And those challenges are usually things like, how do we solve this problem without creating a dystopian future where we have, like people are forced to share their biometrics or other crazy things like that. So anyways, it's an interesting workshop. So we've got several people here. Welcome everybody. Welcome anyone who's new and joining for the first time. I think the first thing we can do is just open it up to any questions that you might have about either recent changes in BrightID or just anything in general about BrightID in general. So let's see. Yeah. Oh yeah. You can feel free to type those in the chat, or you raise your hand if you want to do it that way. Hi, Victor. Good to see you. How is Aurora going? So it's called Aura, and that's a great question. Yeah, we meet frequently, and Aura is humming along. We're trying to get it into a state where the ratings actually matter. Right now, Aura is kind of a toy where you can rate your friends, and you go deeper. That's the whole point of Aura, is we imagine that there's the vast majority of BrightID users are just there to get verified, and they don't care to deep dive into BrightID and understand how it works. But there's going to be a small percentage of users that are going to say, okay, cool, I'm BrightID verified, now what? Like, what else can I do? Is there more I can do? And so Aura allows you to give deeper subjective and I guess objective, based on facts, ratings for the people that you've connected to. And it goes much deeper than the BrightID. In the BrightID app, you just say how well you know this person. Is it someone you just met? Is it someone you already know? Is it someone who's suspicious because you weren't expecting this connection? And that's about it. That's about all you need to do with BrightID if you're a normal user. But Aura users can go much deeper, and they can actually rate the honesty of the people that they're connected to. And even more important, or just as important, they rate other Aura players. And they rate other Aura players also on their honesty, but on how effective they think they're going to be in the Aura game at verifying other people and bringing other legitimate people into BrightID. And so Aura becomes this kind of the battleground for Sybils. Anyone who's looking to attack the system has to go through the Aura users. And then also anyone who wants to achieve this higher verification, this Aura level verification, they just need to know someone who plays Aura, know someone who's using the Aura tool, and then that person will do all the work for them. So the steps are: find someone who's using Aura, connect to them, kind of like how the connection party, you get the meet verification just by connecting to someone at a connection party. To get the Aura verification, you have to know somebody. So it's a little more than just met. You have to know them well enough that they can say something about you, that they can say that that you're honest. But once you do that, they'll take care of everything for you. So it should be really interesting. And for those people who are saying like, well, okay, well, I don't know anyone who's using the Aura game. I'm new to BrightID. I don't know anybody. Well, that's it sort of becomes your challenge, I guess you could say, your opportunity to, if you want, to dive into Aura and learn how it works and become that person who then connects up all their friends and gets a bunch of people verified. And there eventually we want it to be the case that people can earn money, and the best Aura players could even make a living and become professionals at it. So if you're bringing a lot of people into BrightID and doing a really good job, that could be a full-time job for some people. Is the beta live now? Yes, it is. So I'll type it into the chat. It's not a public beta, so I'm not going to share it on YouTube, but if any people who came today want to just like poke around with it, yeah, you can check it out.
And I'll note that what a new person can do on it is somewhat limited, because you don't have the resource, i.e. energy, within Aura, because no one's given it to you yet.
Yeah, so you're also not going to have very many connections to rate. If you're brand new and you literally know no one, you're not going to have anyone that you can rate in BrightID. Aura players need to, they need to do some work. So the point of being an Aura player is you're someone that's bringing people into BrightID, and you're also going to, what we hope is that through that process of bringing other people into BrightID, you will eventually link up with another Aura player. We think that the graph of humanity is pretty well connected. It's only gonna take so long before if you're working hard to connect people, before you find other people that are doing the same thing. So
hey Billy, that's you, right?
Yeah. Hey Billy, how is the how are NFTs doing? I got to check right now, but I bought like a bunch for my son. He like really liked them, so he got a nice little collection of them.
So yeah, actually doing pretty good. Not to go too off point, but we hit like 1,000 mints, so that was pretty awesome. From like a team of nobodies, that was pretty cool. We're still building. Like I'm building a lot of things. Again, if you checked out the One Hive TV, I kind of went into the deeps of like the limitations that I had as a developer, as our front end dev kind of disappearing, and then I had to learn React, HTML, CSS, and everything in like a month and deploy. So there's been a whole thing about that, and I'm still building. So I'm trying to create a library. We now have, it's now a governance token as a utility on snapshot.org. So now we're going to start voting with those. Cool. And there'll be another vote for waiting power. Like all the legendaries will have like, an extra vote. So there'll be a bit of a campaign for that to, let everybody know, as many people, one NFT is one vote, but like if you have a legendary, you get like 5 votes or something. So it's still up for debate.
That's really cool. How do we know if we have a legendary?
If you look at the Eport website, like if you look at your wallet, it'll show you all the stats on there. There's only like a total of like 16 of those, and then a few mystics, which are the X-Dye punks. But basically, if it's a perfect set, like if it looks like the one on the website, they're legendary.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, so more utility, and then also we are going to be doing like an airdrop of One Honey. We're probably going to do that like on I'm really trying to support like all the One Hive products. So One Hive live TV stream on Monday, it's going to be like one honey. Everybody in this market's going a little bit crazy. So, you know, every bee could use some honey. So we're going to buy honey. And then pretty much I'm going to have like T Wells, like just randomly pick a number through random.org. And whoever holds that token ID number, they got to claim it, but it's open for anybody. That means anybody on the BrightID safe or anything, as long as someone claims it, we're going to send it to that wallet that shows up on the contract. So, you know, more community outreach and stuff, and we're bringing more utility for it. I'm trying to like figure out how to do maybe a cross collab with a couple other NFT projects on the space. We've been talking about, you know, utilizing Polygon's API feature for OpenSea, because now you can get verified with that. It's like, well, do we deploy in Polygon? Well, it's got to be a vote. So, you know, it's now kind of, you know, Snapshot is not necessarily a garden, and we can't use NFT for gardens because we have to wrap it and then you can't see your NFT anymore. So that, you know, we're working with what we got, and, you know, there's still so much to build, but I got so much to learn too. So I'm like, for me personally, I'm actually looking for a mentor, and I actually have a little bit of funds now to actually pay somebody. So, you know, I'm reading like 3 hours of docs, or someone can tell me in 30 minutes, you know. So that's where we're at right now. But, you know, just constantly building and, you know, just doing things. Like even one of the artists is thinking about doing a t-shirt line. So I'm like, well, if I build a contract for you, anybody holding a bee gets, you know, for every, you know, bee they hold, it's $1 off or whatever percentage, you know, just speculative, like just more utility for the community, you know, things like that, you know, in short.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was really excited to get some a couple bees that were BrightID themed. Especially like we got one that looks a lot like the queen bee. So I don't think it's the legendary one, but we got a really cool looking.
Yeah. I like Dama's work, like is one of my favorite. Like when I saw her like outline layout, I was like, you need to have an OpenSea or something. Like if you're working on a new project, like I'm a fan of your style. So like I've been kind of buying them on the off market too. So I'm like, if Dama gets royalties, it's like from me. So I love it. Yeah.
Billy, can you paste the marketplace link too?
Yeah, I couldn't get the market thing to work for some reason. Yeah, maybe just paste a link to that.
Yeah.
And is that really obvious to get to on the page?
I thought it was,
page?
but I clicked on market. I clicked on market and it did something else.
So if you go to Eport and then you like enter the app, you can look down and like it's an official contract. So in the listings, you can click on the NFBs on the listings. It has like a little eyeball logo. And then like that's only the ones that are being sold. But if you look at the filters and you click on the tokens on the left, so if you click filters and hit tokens on the left, you can see all the tokens that have been minted in a sense. And then if you want to see the ones that you're holding on the top right, where it says like XDAI with that little kind of like my Ether wallet kind of logo, if you click on that, it'll show you all your NFT holdings. Yeah, it's a little less intuitive than OpenSea. You know, there's been I've been communicating with Alex at Eport to see, you know, what could be better. But you know, there's just another issue with like Gnosis chain is like I see all these cool tools out there for Ethereum, for Avalanche, for Polygon, but I was like, well, where's the Gnosis chain love? There's no like built-in tools for that. So pretty much everybody has to build it from scratch on this chain.
Yeah, that can be a challenge. Cool. Yeah. So I'm looking at the listings for NFBs, and there's nothing that's under the mint price. Like you can still mint them, but I guess find some cheap.
That alone is like, I'm thinking of like the calculations for that. I'm like, you know, the Firebee got minted yesterday, and now that's going for about like 4.5, like 4,500 for that, because it's one of one. It's like a 0.04 chance to get that. And I was like, well, do I really want to pay that much? But I was like, okay, well, if it's out of, you know, 2,525, like, and then it was a one chance, and then the price at what it is at 39, the right price would theoretically be 3,500, you know, based on, you know, if you bought them all, what are the chances that you got that? And then I was like, well, if I wanted this particular B, well, how many mints would I have to mint to get that chance of that B? And I was like, well, if I wanted a BrightID one, I'd have to mint like, you know, there's 12 artists, so at least a chance of like 1 out of 10, 11. So theoretically, getting the B that you want would probably be like 10 mint prices roughly. So anything under that is theoretically, you know, but it's like right now it's like, well, it's just a PFP, so I'll take my chances on the mint. But you know, we still have more to build. Like it's not like you know, it's like people are like, oh, are you sad about having only 1K? I was like, well, no, actually it's pretty good because it kind of keeps us hungry, keeps me building. You know, if you blow up too fast, you know, too much success and ultimately can kind of kill the motivation too. So, it just keeps me working.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the price, because like, especially the gas cost, but also the fact that they're only 39 DAI, that's really nice. So I said the price right, didn't I? Isn't that what it is? 39 or something like that?
Yeah, it's 39. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like so cheap. It's compared to what you like, you would pay more than that just in gas to buy anything on mainnet. So it's really nice. And then of course the gas is free. So yeah, NFBs are fun. So that's, like I said, this is what my kids are dabbling in. So this is like the baseball cards for their generation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a lot of the gardens guys wanted to get gardens. So, like, pretty much, like some of the guys I have never talked to ever in the community, as long as I've been there. Now we're trading. Okay, well, I got this token. What do you got? It came. Let's do a trade off the market. So it was pretty cool. Like, a lot of people were talking to each other, and we're trying to find a way to revamp that with more airdrops and more support. And then, like, we gave back to like the One Hive Treasury a small percentage too of what we have, and we still have to do our BrightID buybacks, but because of the market, it was crazy. It was kind of a luck by chance, because I set it on the safe. I was like, all right, I need signers. We had one signer, and then 2 hours later, we had like this huge like 30% drop. I was like, well, okay, let's cancel that and let's redo it, and then we'll wait for the market to settle, and then we're going to start doing our buybacks for all the communities. So we want to do it smart in a way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Right.
All right. Do we have any BrightID questions in general? Anything you want to talk about, really? Okay, so here's like 3 questions all at once, right when I said that. Okay. Okay, how did you gather funds? Okay, so I think this will be a good intro into Giveth. BrightID started as an idea in my head, and I started to put together some documents on how it should work. And then I started looking for a community, because I wanted to get feedback, because I have a lot of ideas. This is not the first idea that I've ever had. So I got to the point where I felt like, okay, I have enough written out here that I can find out if it's a good idea by talking to other people. So but I was, I had heard of Bitcoin, I had heard of Ethereum, but I didn't realize, I mean, I knew there was a Bitcoin community, but Bitcoin.org back then was just kind of like the bitcointalk.org or whatever, was just kind of, it was just people shilling crappy coins. So I didn't feel like that was the right place. But I can't even remember how I found it, but I found there was something called DexStack, which was basically just a place for people who are working on decentralized projects. This was in 2017, I think, 2006. Yeah, 2017. So it was something created by this really cool guy who's an author, and he had the way I found it was he had created a project. So another thing I was doing is I was just searching around Google looking for similar projects to BrightID, searching for what other people had done, and I found this project called Cicada, which is defunct. It never really got built, but there was a little bit of hype around it. So anyways, the creator of that had he had created this like collaboration place on Mattermost. It was a Mattermost server, which is like a chat server. So anyways, there was probably like a few thousand people in there just chatting about all sorts of decentralized projects that they were working on. And that was my first real experience finding that there was a community around it. So anyways, I started talking to people and asking for their feedback, and talked to the creator of Cicada a lot, and met a bunch of cool people. But I think kind of one of the tipping points was when I found Giveth. And actually, I think I found them through a web search, but for another idea, because I basically had the same idea that Giveth had, but I was really excited to find that someone else had the same idea and that had already basically built it. So Giveth, I found Giveth, and they had just launched something called like a new circle called social coding, and where you're supposed to come in and pitch your idea for some like cool public good project, and then people would vote on it, and then it was also a place to recruit people to work on it. People really liked the BrightID idea there, and like a bunch of people from Giveth that had found the social coding circle wanted to work on it. And so that's where I met David, Maddie, Yalda. I'm probably missing some people, but anyways, some people are like, hey, yeah, I want to work on that. And so then that was the first time that it felt like, okay, cool. We actually have a team, like, and a bunch of interested people. We could actually build this thing. So the point is, Giveth provided a small amount of funding, but really it was just finding the volunteers that were really interested in the project and thought that it could exist, because that's how I got going on it. It was something that I worked on in my spare time. I would come home from working my regular software development job and then come home and just work at night on BrightID. So it was really a passion project, and it always will be. And so luckily I was able to find these other people, and we got a small amount of money from Giveth, not enough to really pay anyone, not enough for anyone to quit their job or anything like that. So that was how it very first got started. That's kind of the story. And then, okay, the next question is, you asked about a crypto loan. So I will say that BrightID has an interesting history with loans, because we were the first DAO that I know of to receive a loan. Do you think that that's probably right, Phil? That, like, do you think that BMain DAO was probably the first DAO to receive a loan in the crypto sphere?
Possibly. It was an unsecured loan, which
Yeah.
probably, like, I'd say it was the first unsecured loan to a DAO. I
Yeah.
don't know if it was the first loan period.
Yeah, it would be impossible to track whether DAOs got loans, but it was the first loan that I had ever heard of, and certainly the first unsecured loan. Based on
And to be clear,
our DAO's financial records and status or whatever, we got a loan from just a bunch of independent investors pooling their money together in Maple Finance. So that was really cool.
And let's clarify. So prior to that loan, the subs SP model was launched to sort of.
Okay, so we had already done the sub sale.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. We took those funds and we took loan funds and we bought more subs. So we launched the subs SP sale publicly. Anybody could sort of pre-buy usage of the BrightID network. Fundamentally still how BMain plans to fund itself now and in the future. And we raised in total about $500,000, I think. It would look like more at first glance because the DAO itself used its funds to buy from the dashboard itself. But I'd say an outside funding about $500,000, and that has paid for a team of something like 15 people for the past 2 years to build everything that is BrightID.
Yep.
That money, in addition to money that came in through Gitcoin rounds. There are a few little things here, other things here and there, but the things that drove the needle was the subs SP sale and the and Gitcoin donation rounds, both in money that people actually gave directly to BrightID and matching funds.
Yep.
The loan was a fun little quirk of history, but insignificant in
Yeah.
the financials. And it was what, $12,000 or something. It was.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun to receive a crypto loan from
And
Eport.
Maple Finance, who gave it to us, has pivoted a lot since then.
Yeah.
It is doing awesome. So yeah, Maple Finance is really cool, and they're now providing loans to sort of large players in the DeFi and exchange place, and they've got a bunch of sort of old school banks that are starting to go, oh, maybe we could interact with the crypto space through this platform that doesn't feel so scary to us. Like we can understand how this might work for us. So keep watching out for Maple.
Yeah, and so I would add Giveth to your list of ways to fund public goods. That I'm sure a lot of you know about ClearFund and you know about Gitcoin because those are partner projects with BrightID. Giveth, it was the first project that donated anything to BrightID, so we're really appreciative of that long history that we have with them. We just did a token swap with the Give token, so you can see a record of that in our forum and also in our DAO, in BrightDAO. So yeah, check out Giveth, giveth.io. Check out some of the really cool public goods projects. I think BrightID is back up there, so you can even donate to BrightID. A cool thing about Giveth is they have this thing called givebacks, where you can, I think right now it's around 60%. So you make your donation, and then you'll get 60% of your donation streamed back from the Giveth treasury over, I think, 5 years or some period like that. So it's like a different but kind of cool model for incentivizing donations. So Gitcoin has its way of doing the matching funds, and then Giveth has this givebacks. And Giveth has this really cool thing about when you donate to a lot of the charities are tracked or traced, I think is what they call it, traced. And that was the thing that attracted me to Giveth in the first place. And that was kind of like the idea that I had, that was this same idea that they had, was I thought it'd be cool to use the blockchain to be able to add transparency to donations and add veto power along the way. So if you saw that you had donated some tokens and then they got funneled to like within the charity, they got sent to something that you didn't agree with, or you didn't feel like that's what you were donating to, then you could veto it at that point. And I thought, okay, like I think that sort of accountability would be really nice. Someone should do that. And so I looked around on the internet, I found Giveth. I'm like, holy cow, they're doing exactly that. That's really cool. So that's something that they do. So check out Giveth for sure. Let's see. So let's see, what other question? Oh yeah, final question. How would you ensure that the application along with the graph will not end up being sold to some third party? So the graph is already really decentralized.
And public.
And public.
I promise we won't sell it because it's already free.
There's nothing to sell, like it's out there. We can't like call it back in. It's there. But the app is something that we're trying to decentralize more. My vision for the BrightID app is kind of just like a management app where people manage linking to other BrightID enabled apps, which you can do right now. And also authorizing other devices, authorizing other apps that allow you to connect to people, so that you don't need to use the BrightID app to do everything. Right now, you have to pretty much use it to do everything. In the future, it should just be kind of your authorization hub where you manage other devices, manage other apps. And then within those other apps, you can do things like make connections to other people. So we don't want to own we don't, because there's a public, each node has a public API. So someone could already build another way to make connections in BrightID. We don't want to own that. We want to provide that utility So right now we have our core team that has accounts with Google Play and iOS App Store. So we still have these centralized pieces, like being able to release this tool to those app stores. But we want more decentralized options. So if you can think of good ways, like I think we've had some suggestions in the past, if you have ways to decentralize that part of it more, please do. We want everything to be decentralized, but we just have to do it in baby steps. Let's see. Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to buy it. Like no one's going to be like, hey, I'm XYZ Corp and I want to buy BrightID app. Well, okay, you can buy it, but then we can fork it and make a different app to make connections. Like you don't own the connection making ability on BrightID. So let's see.
And I would just add to that the connection, the raw connection data itself. So when I connect to Adam and I mark him as my recovery connection, that's on the social graph. But when I do that, I get his name and picture. Those are not on the social graph. He shared those peer-to-peer with me, and I have them now, but they're not part of the public social. They're not part of the graph. It's just the connection data. Just like sort of on Ethereum, you can go look at Etherscan and you can see that, hey, account A moved funds to account B. That part's public, but who owns that account? That has to be figured out separate from the chain data.
Yeah. And the way to figure that out is to connect to that person, and then they'll share some whatever information they choose to share with you. But yeah, I mean, I want people to also understand. So that's really important. No one owns the data, so there's no data to sell. So there's no like honeypot for companies to want to come and buy. So there's really like there's no reason for there's nothing to sell. Like there's nothing that anyone would want to buy from BrightID. All the important pieces are open source. The data is peer-to-peer. So it's like we specifically made it so that there's nothing to sell. But I will say about funding, it's a public good, and so we have to be really creative about how we fund it. And we landed on the sponsorship model a couple of years ago, and I actually really like the sponsorship model. What it is it's saying that if I'm a new app that's integrating with BrightID, I can offer to sponsor my users. And we say kind of as just a tradition, I guess you could say, that everybody in BrightID needs to be sponsored. And so if you as an app say, yeah, I'm willing to sponsor my users, then that attracts users over to your app. So it's like you get to be on the public registry of BrightID apps. You get discoverability from BrightID users, and it's this opt-in thing. If you don't do that, you won't get on the app registry. Users won't find you. They won't get sponsored by you. You lose that discoverability, but you don't have to. Like you can just be kind of an anonymous or incognito app, or you can advertise some other way or whatever you want to do. But the idea is in the future, and we're already starting to see this, there's an advantage to making yourself known to existing BrightID users. You get the existing 50,000 users who they're excited, like they're already using BrightID for other apps that they think are cool. And when they find out about a new app, the chances are it's fairly similar to an app that they're already using, and they're excited to try it out. So that's the benefit of that you get by opting into buying sponsorships as an app. So we think that model should work out fine for funding BrightID in the future. So that's, yeah, right now it's not generating a lot of money just because we don't have a lot of users. So like Philip said, we did these, we sold like a streaming package of sponsorships called subs. We sold those at a huge discount. Those are all sold out. I don't even think you can buy them I don't think there's any liquidity right now, but there may be.
There's a little bit. There's a Uni V2. EV3 pool that has some for sale at $10 if anyone really wants to buy some.
Yeah, you can buy sponsorships for like 15 cents each. You can also buy them on ID chain where the gas is really cheap, and then you can assign them to your app, and that will add you to the app registry. And it's really cool because if you're a small app and maybe you only buy like a couple thousand sponsorships or something like that, that's fine. You can still attract you can still attract even more users than that, because even users that are already sponsored by another app will come to your app. They won't use up your sponsorships. They'll come and find your app from being on the app registry. So I think it's a really, really good deal. And we wanted to make sure that no user and no app should ever be priced out of BrightID. BrightID is meant to be universal. Everybody's supposed to have one. So I like this model because no one is excluded.
So Bouquet's got more questions. Before I answer that one and keep the questions coming, one thing I just want to say back about the social graph. It is possible that someone could take other data from other social graphs. The government could come in, overlay. They could probably figure out who the people were on the BrightID social graph by mapping it to other social graphs. That's a thing, which is part of why we're so excited about the blind signature model of BrightID, which is sort of always how we dreamed BrightID would work, is that when you link to an app, the app doesn't know who you are in BrightID. Nobody does. And like that's the beautiful thing. They get a verification back that you met some criteria, that your entry on the BrightID social graph met some criteria, but that's it. They don't know what your BrightID unique identifier is. They don't know where you are on the graph. So
that
really
part
wanted that to be true for a long, long time, and now it is.
Yeah, so that part's anonymous. That's good. But like Philip said, when you if I make a connection, so let's say I make a connection to Philip on BrightID, now he knows who I am in the graph, and if he wants to be a jerk and like out me to the world when I don't want that, he could do that. So every person you're making a connection with, you kind of take that risk. So I don't think we can say that BrightID is anonymous or private. We can say that no one owns all the data, that's decentralized. So we can at least say that, and we can say that your verification when you're sharing that with apps, that's private. So it doesn't link you to a bunch of different apps together. You can stay private as far as what apps you use. So that's good. And then you had another question. Let's see. Reward system. Are you planning on some sort of reward system, like users just being part of the graph, like a dividend? Yeah, so we did that. So it wasn't that simple. I think we had other requirements when we did the Bright token drop.
I mean, if you had linked to a single app, you got 10 Bright. I mean,
right.
So
right.
If anyone that had in good faith tried to use BrightID did get something. That said, what BrightID is never going to have tons of money at like the BrightID point. That's not the point. It's public good. It just wants to be able to fund itself and developers to work on it. Any other community could come along now and give to the BrightID users, and that's what we think is much more likely. So we've already seen OneHive was available to BrightID, Rarecoin was available to BrightID users, increased matching at Gitcoin was available to BrightID users, earning $10,000 plus from Rabbit Hole via doing their ENS quest. So anybody that went through with Rabbit Hole and set up an ENS name made thousands and thousands of dollars in free ENS tokens, and you only could do that through Rabbit Hole by having BrightID. So we don't think that BrightID is not going to give you the money, but all the other things using BrightID will hopefully give tons of money in all sorts of different ways. I came into this imagining a thing called universal faucet, where just anybody that wants to give stuff away, great, send it in here. Anybody, and then you could just like go and collect your your basket of things, and the requirement is just that you show up with your BrightID to prove that, hey, I haven't already collected what should be due to me.
Yeah, Philip and I are both big proponents of universal basic income. And my view on how that will become a reality has changed a lot in the past couple of years because of my experience with BrightID. I've seen that I think that it's going to become just a hodgepodge of 1,000 different things that give you dividends, and eventually that adds up to a basic income for everybody on Earth. That's how I think it's going to happen. So yeah, I'm really excited for anything that piggybacks on top of BrightID. I'm really glad that we didn't try to tie it to a universal basic income or as some sort of token model like that, because the economics are tough, and they're going to be iterated on many times before people get the economics of a UBI like token correct. And we didn't want to have to do that. We wanted to solve a very specific problem and allow other people to experiment on top of that with their basic income tokens. So I'm really happy about that, and I think there will be other dividends coming in the future, other experiments on top of it, other faucets, other airdrops. I think people that are using BrightID right now, they're in a really good spot to collect on those things and be the early adopters of UBI. So I think it's going to be really cool. Let's see. There was another question I was going to answer. Let's see. Yeah, so what was I going to say? Something about how BrightID, like some people, oh yeah, some people were disappointed because maybe they were a couple months late for the faucet or something like, or not the faucet, the BrightID airdrop. And I tried so hard in the Discord to tell them, like, you guys, this is just the beginning. You know, you missed out on $100 worth of tokens or whatever. You don't have to like beat yourself up over that. There's like, this is just the beginning. There's gonna be a whole bunch more. Stick around. And unfortunately, a bunch of them just like, they're like, oh, I didn't get my Bright tokens. I'm leaving. I'm disgusted. It's like, oh man, you're missing out. Like the future is the future of this has so much more potential. So anyways, let's see. Proof of burn. Okay. Anyways,
I want to
did
go
you
back
get
one
other
step. One of
questions?
the questions, you know, so
Yeah.
so we imagine sort of other projects rewarding passive BrightID users, as we just sort of said, could be all these different UBIs and faucets and things that are available to BrightID users. That's how a non-serious BrightID user gets rewarded. If we get Aura up and running, if you want to be a serious BrightID user and really actually help BrightID be its best, as opposed to just sort of be a recipient of its existence, we hope that the Aura players can receive compensation. We need to figure out how to extract the value for them so that then we can give it to them. And it's a tricky question again, because like we don't want to exclude people from BrightID, so we can't like charge a lot for it. We're working that figured out, but our goal is that good Aura players can be well rewarded for doing their task. The hypothesis being the task that they are doing is super valuable to the world. So how do you extract some little portion of that doesn't mess it all up? Because the value, like if BrightID works, imagine every human being on Earth has BrightID and it's extremely accurate. The value of that, if that were true, or even just 1 billion people being on BrightID, the value of that being true is so enormous. Like we'd have to capture such a tiny fraction of that in order to pay people to make it so. Tricky to do, but the value's there. So
Value. Definitely. So that's a really tough question, and it's one of those things that I don't think we're going to be able to. We've explored it, but I just, my feeling is I don't think we're going to be able to solve it ahead of time. I think we can iterate and come up with ideas and try ideas, but I don't think we're going to figure out ahead of time how to properly get that value to the Aura players. I think that's something that's going to have to like just come about as we try it, as we launch the Aura game, because there's going to be a lot of value in the people that they verify. The people that they verify, let's say a verified BrightID account is worth $10,000 and you're an Aura player, so you've helped 50 people or 20 people get verified and collect something that's worth $10,000. Obviously, some of that value could or should go back to you as the Aura player. How that happens is one of the challenges that we're thinking about. Like how should that happen in a way that it's not exploitative? Like you don't want to have some middleman that's taking half of everybody's UBI or something like that. You definitely don't want something like that. So they've got to be able to take just a small amount of that value to be able to make it worth their time to do this work. I mean, I'm sure there's people who do it just out of the goodness of their heart, helping their friends and family, and that's great. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer. But we need something at least in place to make sure that it doesn't become exploitative. And so that if you see that, like if you're an Aura player and you see that some other Aura player is being exploitative and taking UBI from people, you can cut them off and you can say, okay, I'm not giving you any of my energy. You don't get to play this game anymore because you're stealing UBI from people and like charging them half of their UBI to get verified. And I don't agree with that. So we need things like that set up. How that's going to work and how people are going to be compensated, we'll just have to kind of figure that out.
It's tricky because that value that would exist for the end user doesn't flow through in one way necessarily.
That's true.
There's a I don't exactly think it's going to work this way, but there's a world in which there's 1,000 separate faucets. They all happen to use BrightID as their validation method, but like you're going and interacting with each of them directly, sort of peer to peer, peer to service. So BrightID therefore and Aura wouldn't be in the value flow there. So we'll see. What we're sort of expecting at this point is when it does launch for people to start doing it, there will just be some very modest rewards, forward funded, just out of things that we all agree today already have value. Where there's just there's some XDAI just sitting there, and whoever the best players are will get a portion of that as a proof of concept, and then we'll figure out how do we. Great, there's a rewards pot. Who can we convince to put some money into the rewards pot, basically? For whatever reason, we're able to convince them to do it.
Yeah, and then somewhere down the line, because really I think most of the value is going to be in the hands of the actual BrightID users. And so if we can somehow get them to give a portion of that back. So let's say you got an airdrop that was worth $100. Maybe you could give $1 back to the Aura players that helped you get verified or something like that. It doesn't need to be something huge. We can still leave most of the value in the hands of the BrightID users. That's totally fine. So it'll be interesting to figure out how that's going to work. Let's see, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, I forgot.
One thing that I want to add about that is that this is worth it because it's not resolved yet. If someone has the answer to everything that you are doing, so it was not worth it. It's already invented. So this isn't really new. This is a revolution in some way. So when it is made, when you get with the point that you need, that's when things is going to really roll about. I mean, I think is worth it because it's not invented yet, the way to do this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's why there needs to be so much experimentation, is because no one's really solved it yet. And I think I remember what I was going to say about the Aura players. So I think early on there should be, so my gut feeling is there will be plenty of people who want to figure out, even if they're not getting paid right away for Aura, they'll want to figure out how to play it, because they'll realize that it takes some time to become good at it, and they want to be the best. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people who start playing because they realize, okay, like I'm creating value. I'm creating value by learning how to do this. I'm creating value by helping people to get verified, by collecting energy, having energy flow so that I can verify more people. And they're going to realize that, like, if I build up my Aura profile now, then I'll be ready in the future when the rewards do come. And so I don't think we're going to have a hard time finding people to play the Aura game. Oh yeah, and then Billy asked, are you guys heading to ETH Denver? I'm not, Philip's not. Do we have anyone going from the BrightID team? I haven't heard of anybody. That's kind of sad.
Really. Yeah, I mean, there will certainly be BrightID verified people there, and like I talked to Oren yesterday. He'll be there.
Yeah, you'll definitely be able to go and make BrightID connections. That's for sure, and learn about some new apps that are using BrightID. That it'll be cool. Oh yeah, some folks from Song Day are going. So you'll be able to make some BrightID connections with them and get in Song DAO. So yeah, there's going to be lots of
Opolis folks.
Oh yeah, there's lots of cool things you'll be able to do with BrightID there. Unfortunately, I know for me, it just came down to like the risk of getting COVID and spreading it around is just too high for me and my family to justify that. It's really sad because I really want to go. Yeah, so if you're there, Billy, just make BrightID connections. It's so much fun to do it in person. Like I love doing it. So yeah, spread the word while you're there. I need gear merch. This is like all the merch I have. I have these little stickers. We have shirts. What can we get you? You want some stickers? Yes, we do have a store. If you go to swag.brightid.org, I think it's called. Let me check, make sure that's actually real. But if you want me to, no, that wasn't it. What is it called? Store.brightid.org, maybe? I think you can get to it from the website. Let me try that. I think it's on the top menu. Oh yeah,
here it is.
Yeah. Okay, and then it just goes to Bonfire.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's on the top menu of brightid.org. So we do have, it's all clothing, I think, right?
Yeah.
So you can get clothes from there. And they're they're pretty expensive. I wish we could just like give you a box of those, a box of shirts. I remember when we went to Germany and Philip showed up with like a bunch of shirts. That was really awesome.
Yeah, and Billy, like if you want to be, like true BrightID, it's the orange T-shirt. Like that's like the super classic.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick one up so I could just wear it there at least. Maybe let's switch it because it's gonna be cold over there. I'm not used to the cold weather, so I'll definitely pick one up there.
Sweatshirt is really, the sweatshirts are really good. So if you want, I can send you a 500 pack of these stickers. In the past, like I took these to ETH Denver a couple of years ago, and I just gave them to people that I connected with on BrightID. I just like gave them a sticker, and then someone put them on their badges so that other people are like, oh, you're using BrightID, here, let me connect with you. So it was kind of fun that way. Do you want me to send you those?
Yeah, we'll coordinate a little bit after. I'll pitch in for
coordinate
whatever
after.
those stickers cost. Yeah.
Stickers you can take there. And maybe divide up among some other people you find there.
Yeah, there's a few one-hivers there. Like because I'm kind of concerned about COVID too. So I got my own place and I have my own things, and I'm gonna get booster and all that. But I was like, man, this could be the first one. So I'm gonna be secluded when I get back. But definitely want to check it out because it'll be the first time going out there. But yeah, definitely rep BrightID, and yeah, for sure. Whatever the cost is, I'll buy it. For sure.
Cool. All right, I'll get some of those sent to you. Cool. Thanks everybody. Thanks for participating in the AMA. Great questions. And yeah, if you have more questions, come on by to our Discord, and we're just always there. We love talking about BrightID. So thanks everybody. Oh yeah, right after this, if you want to come and hear some more projects that are like BrightID and kind of just what is happening in the space of proof of unique personhood, come to the Twitter, just check our latest tweet and come to the Twitter space. We're going to be hanging out there in a couple minutes. All right. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.